So g'day guys, and welcome back to another 100 days of vlogs, the 100-day project. And I thought today, that's quite a good intro to this behind the scenes. Nothing ever goes straight forward. So yeah, welcome back to another 100 days of vlogs, the 100-day project. And I thought in today's vlog, we would talk a little bit about what goes in to actually making one of our travel vlogs. Now what we'll talk about first of all is kit. So I predominantly shoot our travel vlogs on my Fujifilm X-T4 with the 10 to 24mm lens. I also shoot some of the footage, especially most of the 100-day project stuff, on this GoPro, which I'm recording on here. Sometimes a little bit of B-roll, and certainly all of the shorts are shot on an iPhone 13 Pro Max, I think it is. But most of the travel vlogs are shot on the Fujifilm X-T4 with the wide-angle 10 to 24mm lens. I'm reasonably happy with the setup. The image stabilization for stills on the X-T4 is phenomenal, but for video, especially when you're walking around, not as good as some of the other cameras out there, especially not as good as the GoPro. The GoPro's fantastic, but it just freezes up too often. I would say once a day I'm having to reset it. I'm using the medium mod as well, which allows me to plug in an external microphone or use the onboard mic on the medium mod. But when it freezes or when it doesn't switch on, I've got to take all that apart, pull the battery out, put it back in again. And I would say, yes, that happens maybe once or twice a day. Really frustrating when we're recording some driving footage from the dashboard, because then Nicola has to take it off the dashboard, unplug it, replug it back in again and start recording. And by that point, you know, the dancing unicorn over the rainbow has already gone. I think if you were just getting started out, the iPhone's a damn good option, especially if you can pick up some of these rigs now that allow you to attach external audio and things to it as well. The iPhone actually works out really, really well. And what I quite like about the GoPro and the iPhone is they record with HDR video. Now that means that when I'm shooting in a highly dynamic range of shadow and light, the image is quite often properly exposed, whereas in the X-T4 it either takes a while to catch up with itself or just overexposes or underexposes the actual footage itself, so you've kind of got to keep an eye on that. So I kind of prefer the dynamic range on the GoPro, but the image quality I think is still better on the X-T4. I just wish the image stabilization was better, and I have got image stabilization switched on the camera and on the lens as well, but it's still quite shaky when you're walking around. Now for audio, I'm using the Rode Wireless Go 2, which is 2 input. You'll probably see us kind of carrying these things around or attached under ourselves. Again, hit and miss. I would say, okay, 80% of the time completely fine, but every so often, and there's no way to sort of tell this here, you'll record a piece and then go back and it hasn't actually recorded any audio, so that can be a little bit frustrating. Also, to get kind of dynamic off-the-cuff shots, it can be difficult because I have to ask Nicola to sort of put the lavalier mic on and then record it, and then we kind of shoot the piece. I would much prefer to have a microphone on here. I do have one, but the image quality or the video, see what I mean? You've seen the behind the scenes, so I'll leave this in. The audio quality isn't that great, and I'm kind of a bit sort of against spending 250, 300 quid on a onboard mic, when actually the wireless Go's are doing an okay job. Maybe I'll treat myself to a new mic if we get 5,000 subscribers. So that's kit. But what about a little bit of the settings? So when I'm shooting on the X-T4, I will, especially when I'm outside, I'll try to shoot as much as possible at 60 frames a second with 120 shutter speed. That allows me a couple of things. One, it keeps the overexposure to a minimum without me having to dial in aperture, too much aperture. But secondly, it also means that in post, if I've shot some B-roll, I can actually shoot that or slow that down, because I'm shooting or editing on a 24 frames a second timeline. That obviously means that I can actually slow that footage down, which means it actually means that when I'm shooting a bit of B-roll, because I know that I'm going to be able to slow that down if need be, I maybe only need to capture 4 seconds of it, because obviously when I slow that down, that will be longer than 4 seconds. 60 frames a second is what I typically will shoot on the X-T4. Now, just one last thing to mention in regards to the general kind of running of the vlogs. You probably have guessed this along the way. Nicola wouldn't be the most invested in the vlogs. even though she's the one that gets most of the comments and most of the thumbs up. Let's face it, she's got a completely other job that quite often takes a lot of her time. So I completely get it that when I want to take sort of 4 takes of her drinking coffee, she's just going to smack me in the face and say, no, don't do that. So we've decided just to leave it as that. I don't think I will ever sort of tell her to walk up and down a set of stairs 4 times because I didn't get the take. Sometimes she will say something off camera that's an absolute blinder, a real Nicola-ism, and that'd be the only time that we would actually go back and re-record something after the fact, because let's face it, if I'm having to hear these Nicola-isms, then you're going to have to hear them too. But yeah, she wouldn't be as heavily invested in the vlogs as I would be. So that can be a little bit of a challenge, because I'm kind of wanting to go out and maybe capture some footage of some lovely light or lovely weather, and maybe we've planned to go out and do something else. So that can be a little bit of a challenge, but we work through it. So in regards to actually recording the vlog, and what we'll do at the end of this video is, or the last part of this video, is we'll go out and we'll shoot a couple of scenes. Now I'm going to be recording this here, just in case you see me in different club or in different lighting conditions. I'm going to be recording this over a couple of days. So just the magic of TV, we will merge it all together, hopefully. But in regards to capturing the footage, obviously there's the pieces to camera. I am going to try to do less pieces to camera while we're walking, because I do realise that the lack of image stabilisation on the X-T4 does make it a little bit nauseating. So trying to kind of get those pieces to camera, maybe where we're just standing still. Sometimes it kind of works if you're maybe doing a bit of a dynamic piece, maybe a bit of action or something. But generally, it would be hopefully start doing more of those pieces to camera, standing still. You've probably heard us talk about this before as well, where Nicola has mentioned something, and I've kind of immediately went into my head, I'm going to have to go and record that now, because of course us talking about something only means maybe 25% unless we can actually show that too. Now, because I'm shooting on a wide angle lens, I don't generally carry my longer lenses around with me. If Nicola's talking about a mountain peak like 45 miles away, that's going to be quite difficult to capture. But when we're sort of walking around and talking about things, I'm always kind of taking some extra footage, because I know that we're probably going to want to overlay that as we go. Back in the day, swipes were all the rage, where you had someone kind of slowly swipe right, and then kind of, you know, a different swipe down left, and all of a sudden the frame changed. I don't really do that at all, and it probably degrades a little bit from the actual vlog quality itself. I kind of want to get a little bit better at that, about thinking. Quite often I will say, well, okay, I'm going to finish off this piece to camera, and I'm maybe going to drop the camera down, and then the next piece to camera, I'll pull it back up again, so you have almost a seamless piece. 9 times out of 10, I actually forget the last piece I've recorded, and it's completely forgotten. So that last piece is almost wasted, and I have to remove it from the vlog, from the final vlog. Now, we're in Albufeira at the moment, and the travel vlog that we're talking about is just spending a little bit of time here on holiday. So obviously the campsite itself is fantastic, with a beautiful swimming pool. Now, the light tonight is nowhere near as nice as it was last night. Thankfully, I kind of preempted this. That'll be a pussycat. So I kind of preempted that, thankfully, and managed, I'll talk about that in a moment, and went out and actually recorded some footage off the campsite, because while we haven't talked about our experience on the campsite yet, I know we will. So I wanted to make sure that I captured some of that footage in the best light. Now, as I say, tomorrow and Friday, or tomorrow and Saturday, I think it's supposed to be quite windy and quite rainy at times. So thankfully I was able to capture that footage last night. Yeah, so noise, external noise. 9 times out of 10 when you're out recording something, there will be sort of some external noise, whether it's a dog just barking in the background there, which when you're just sitting, you know, chatting to someone, the human brain is actually really good at just sort of lowering that out, that ambient noise out. But when it's being picked up by the camera, by the mics, that will quite often show up in your vlog. Now, with some fancy editing, audio editing, you can probably reduce some of that. I am nowhere near as skilled as I should be with audio editing, so I'm not able to do that. So quite often when we are recording a piece to camera, there is some background noise or some noise that's just going to be too much. I have to keep sort of quite aware of that, so we can then re-record that piece to camera. It's one of the reasons why recording around cities can be so challenging, because there's always noise in cities, especially car noise driving past. It just is really frustrating. And as I say, you're out there sort of about to sort of record a really good piece, or maybe something is happening, you need to record that there. You've got that kind of really bad noise in the background. Now, in regards to that sort of ambient noise, sometimes I'll record B-roll. Just realised I was pointing the camera at the lady swimming in the swimming pool. Not good form, Nigel. Sometimes I'll record B-roll with the ambient noise in the background and then keep that in post, even though there may be some music overlaid on top of it. More often than not, though, B-roll that I'm recording will actually be sort of without any microphones. The time that I would record some audio from the actual ambient scene is if it's maybe something in nature. So if you're waking up first thing in the morning, you've got some birdsong or something, yes, you can grab that from Epidemic Sound, not sponsored by the way, but if you can capture that in your actual video itself, then you don't have to go looking for some extra sort of sounds. Now the one thing, hang on, I'm just checking because this is where it gets frustrating. 2 minutes. You have to keep checking that little and often, because there's no way to tell whether or not the audio is still recording properly unless you actually look at the top of the receiver on the GoPro here. So I have to keep checking that. One thing I don't make use of in the vlogs, and I really should, because it works out quite well when you're doing an opening, setting the scene, or talking about a park up or a location, is drone footage. I have a love-hate relationship with drones. Don't get me wrong, they can give you some unique perspectives and some really lovely footage, but I really don't like them. I do have a drone, but I don't think I've included any drone footage in any of our travel vlogs for well over a year. Maybe I'll change that. Obviously we're here in Albufeira, and Albufeira does have a beautiful beach, so it might be that I, at some point this weekend, head down early in the morning and record some footage just while we're talking about Albufeira, just as a little bit of a B-roll. In regards to the amount of footage that I collect, the more the better. So if I'm shooting for a 10-minute vlog, we don't really have an idea how long the vlogs are going to be, but say for example I'm shooting for a 10-minute vlog, I will probably capture at least double that in terms of B-roll footage, just so I have something that I can choose from. It also means that if I have something that I maybe want to use at a later date, just to sort of talk back in history, it hasn't been footage that's been used before, so I'm always kind of recording, always sort of putting pieces down, allowing me to be a little bit more flexible when it comes to telling the story of our weekend travel. Hardware kind of settings and thought process. So what we'll do over the next kind of maybe 5 minutes of this vlog is we'll take you out and about and show you some of the behind the scenes of kind of what I'm recording as we look to make our travel vlog here in Albufeira, and we'll maybe jump back in at the end of the vlog just to wrap things up. But I hope you find this little sort of intro bit useful, and now we'll head out into the field. Well, we'll just head upstairs actually now and talk about the swimming pool.